Alex, can we meet at the bank later?
Sure, I'll bring my savings.
No, wait. I'm at the riverbank, silly. We're supposed to go fishing.
See, that's the problem with words. They can be ambiguous.
In this presentation, we've explored how ambiguous and vague terms affect meaning.
And how clear definitions can help us avoid confusion.
Welcome to our presentations on modules 5 to 7 of Acuña's Advanced Techniques for Critical Thinking.
I'm Alexandra Marie Di Del Rosario.
And I'm Sofia Venice P. Enriquez.
Now, let's begin with Module 5 first, the ambiguous and vague terms. So according to Acuña, after completing this module, he guarantees that we should be able to differentiate between an ambiguous from a vague term, recognize the ambiguity of evaluative term, and avoid the fallacy of equivocation. So, why words can mislead us? As Acuña reminds us, vague and ambiguous statements are difficult to determine if they are true or false. So, according to him, the difference between an ambiguous and a vague term is an ambiguous term is when it acquires many different meanings in different contexts. The more uses a term acquires, the more ambiguous it becomes. So the vague term, a term is vague when something goes wrong with the intention of the concept, so that you cannot clearly determine what to include and what to exclude. So to make it simple, ambiguous terms are words with multiple distinct meanings that causes confusion and can lead to fallacy of equivocation. Fallacy of equivocation is when a single word is used with two or more different meanings in a phrase. So this is a fallacy of equivocation example that we got from the internet to make it simple and to explain it very clearly. So the phrase is, a feather is light. What is light cannot be dark. Therefore, a feather cannot be dark. In this text, the word light is used in two different contexts. So a feather is light, which means a feather weighs less. And what is light cannot be dark. What has light cannot be dark. So when you turn off the lights in a room, it's dark. So it's used in two completely different contexts with no connection whatsoever. An example that was given from Acuña's book about ambiguous term is the word good. The word good depends on, the meaning of the word good depends on philosophical belief. So example, if you are a hedonist or a hedonist, the word good means pleasure. If you are a humanist, it means developing human potential. For utilitarians, it means greatest happiness for the greatest number. For logical positivists, it means a personal approval. And for Kantians, it means following of duty. Next are vague terms. Vague terms are unclear meaning of words. If ambiguous terms cause confusion, vague terms cause uncertainty. So vagueness can lead to paradox of the heap. Unlike ambiguous terms, it can lead to fallacy of equivocation. Paradox of the heap, or Sorite's paradox, is the equal for vagueness. And it shows how vague terms like heap, bald, or tall lead to paradoxical reasoning. An example for Sorite's paradox that we got from the internet is a pile of 10,000 grains of sand is a heap. So if you have 10,000 grains of sand, that's clearly a heap. And if you remove just one grain, it's still a heap. But if you keep on removing grains one at a time, when does it stop being a heap? At one grain, you can't really call it a heap anymore. So this shows how vague terms can lead to paradoxes, which can also be sometimes identified as ironies. So a vagueness example that we got from the internet is John is tall. It's probably one of the most or it's probably one of the easiest examples that we can give. John is tall. When does tall stop and start? Is 5'9" tall, 5'10", or 6 foot? There's no sharp boundary where tall starts. There's no minimum, there's no maximum. So an example of vagueness given from Acuña's book is some politicians are corrupt. How many politicians am I talking about? Some Christians are honest. How many Christians are honest? At least one, but not all. There are no limitations as to how many politicians are corrupt and how many Christians are honest.
Moving on to Module 6, on definitions. Acuña says that after completing this module, we will be able to, number 1, distinguish the different types of definition. Number 2, discuss the importance as well as the limitation of each type of definition. Number 3, state the importance of intension and extension in order to have a complete understanding of the meaning of any term, and explain the technique of operational definition. Definition by synonym. A definition by synonym is an error in definition called circular definitions. A definition by synonym is rudimentary, which means it is limited. A definition by synonym isn't a good definition, as it doesn't provide the full context. An example from Acuña's book is about the amphibian. Asking a question about what is an amphibian cannot be answered by giving a synonym. As for the ostensive definition, it is used when defining a term by giving an example of the members of an extension. For example, when you point to a specific thing, like for example, this is a tissue, you would now learn that this is a tissue. However, this meaning is incomplete, as an ostensive definition cannot give you the full context. It only limits your idea into specific examples. Using the example of an amphibian again, your idea of an amphibian can only be limited to turtles and frogs if that is the only things that are pointed to you. If you are just given that examples, you cannot know the whole context and cannot know why amphibians are classified as amphibians. In the next slide are the examples of ostensive definitions. Like number 1, defining a car by pointing a car. Number 2, defining the color purple by showing a purple object. And number 3, defining donating by showing a video of a person giving out relief goods. But why is ostensive definition important, even if it is incomplete, as they say? Ostensive definitions are important because ostensive definitions are how we first learn about things as a child, especially pertaining to our first language. Next is intension and extension. This was previously discussed by Group 1 in Module 2, but I will further discuss intention and extension to give a complete understanding. Okay, so intention and extension. To have a complete understanding of the meaning of a concept, you have to state the intention without vagueness and give some typical examples of the members of the extension. How do you define the term definition? A definition is a linguistic device that provides an explanation or demonstration about the use of a term. The use of a term is highlighted in terms of its intention and extension in the context of a language game. All definitions must share this common feature. A definition is complete if you are provided with both a clear statement of the intention and some typical members of its extension. To simplify, intention is the meaning of a term. It can also be said to be a definition. As for the extension, it is the totality of members in the terms category, the description of a common property. Here are examples of intension and extensions pertaining about triangles. A definition of the triangle by intention is a three-sided polygon. while the definition of a triangle by extension is all three-sided polygons. Intensions and extensions are inversely related. The wider the extension, the narrower the intention, and vice versa. Reportive versus stimulative definition. Reportive definitions provide information about how a term is being used the same way in real-life situations. Reportive definitions is a standard use or conventional use of a term. It can also be known as the lexical definition or the dictionary definition. As for the stipulative definition introduces technical terms. It assigns new meanings to a term, regardless of its initial meaning. We will learn more about that later. It uses a term in a very unique way in a language game. So as it is non-conventional. Further information about reportive definition. As I said earlier, it is often identified with dictionary definitions, so it must not be too broad or too narrow. Here is an example. The definition of a prime number. Any integer greater than 1 and divisible only by 1 in itself. That is a definition of a prime number by reportive definition. Dictionary definitions are oftentimes incomplete. In a standard college dictionary, many terms are defined only ostensibly or by synonyms. Some definitions are offered by merely stating the intention without providing samples of the members of the extension. As for stipulative definition, it contains, like said earlier, technical terms. It is used for many specialized purposes, such as conducting scientific research, enacting legislation, coining a term in philosophy, or naming an invention. According to Wittgenstein, we can circumscribe the use of a term. In this way, we specify a precise use of key terms in our scientific research, in legislation, or in philosophy once again. When you are going to use a term in a specialized way that departs from conventional use, you are duty-bound to warn your audience or your reader about your stipulative definition. An example of this is by using the definition here, KFC and atoms and molecules. KFC may mean different things to one person and to another. It can mean Kentucky Fried Chicken or KFC, Korean Fried Chicken, as stated here in the PPT. It depends on whether the person you're talking to has a background or prior context to the certain term used. So to avoid confusion, we should warn or talk to a person about what we mean. We should provide additional context. Aside from the term KFC, we also have the term atom and molecule, which is also used philosophically. As stated by Acuna in the book, the adaptation of terms atoms and molecules from physics was used by Russell in his philosophy of logical atomism to distinguish the types of propositions, namely atomic and molecular propositions. So once again, when you are using stipulative definitions, you should warn your audience or reader about your use of stipulative definition to avoid misunderstandings. Okay, as for the next, we are going to talk about operational divisions. According to P.W. Bridgman, all scientific concepts should be defined in terms of performable operations. What does this mean? It means that operational definition is a kind of definition that is meant to handle the sciences and dispositional concepts around it. There are two types of definitions, the instrumental and the paper and pencil operations. For the instrumental, it is performed by various devices for observation and measurement, like the microscope and the telescope. As for the paper and pencil operations, it involves the use of verbal operations and thought experiments. The next slide will provide examples of these two. For the instrumental, we will be using the example of a temperature or a thermometer. A temperature is what a thermometer reads. That is the instrumental definition Instead of defining the temperature abstractly, we define it by using an instrument. For the next one, paper and pencil operations. We will be using IQ test, which was also the example given by Acuna in the book. The operational definition of IQ consists in taking a paper and pencil test, like the finite IQ test. The formula uses 1Q equals the mental age divided by the chronicle age times 100. For instance, if your score is more than 140, then you are considered a genius. If your score is 100 and below, you are average. According to him, it is necessary and sufficient to condition for membership in the extension of the concept. It does not cease to be an intention just because the trait or set of traits is observable only by performing some operations. On the contrary, the intention here becomes a strict intention. If after performing the operational definition, the expected observation or characteristic did not occur, then it is not the member of the extension of the concept. To further understand this, the next module will be discussed by Alex. How to define a concept.
Thank you. Hello again. So we are now moving to Module 7, which focuses on analytic definitions. After completing this module, according to Acuna, I'm sure that we will be able to differentiate definiendum, definiens, and denotata, avoid common errors in definition, and apply the 5 rules of a good definition, and compose good analytic definitions. So, in analytic definition din pala, we will learn how to break down terms properly, avoid errors, and apply the rules for making clear and precise definitions. According to Acuna, his version of analytic definition is a practical way of defining a concept by analyzing its intension into 3 parts: the definiendum, which is the term to be defined, the genus, which is the general class, and the differentia, which is the unique feature, with denotata as an example of its extension. To break analytic definition down, we have, of course, definiendum, definiens, and denotata. For definiendum, it is the term to be defined. For example, mammal. Definiens is the intention, which defines the property or characteristics of the definiendum. Let's connect the two of them. Mammal, which is a warm-blooded animal with hair and mammary glands. Or a mammal is a warm-blooded animal with hair and mammary glands. For denotata, these are the typical examples, which are the members of the extension of the definiendum. Let's connect it again. A mammal is a warm-blooded animal with hair and mammary glands, like dogs, cats, and whales. That is a good example of an analytic definition. Acuna emphasizes denotata because most logic and philosophy texts ignore this part, denotata. But for Acuna, examples are very important for clarity. I know we all agree with that. So definiens is actually divided into 2, which are the genus and the differentia. We have already tackled that earlier. So genus is the wider concept, which are examples, polygon and mammal. And differentia is the unique traits that distinguish species. 3 sides, mammary glands. So let's connect it. A polygon has 3 sides. Mammals have mammary glands.
So I will be discussing this part. Analytic definitions will tremendously facilitate the technique of stating the intentions of many concepts without vagueness and readily provide some examples of the members of their extensions. Consider some samples of analytic definition. Epistemology is a subdiscipline of philosophy dealing with the source, nature, and validity of knowledge. Empirism and rationalism are the 2 types of epistemologies. Rules in composing a definition. We have 5 rules stated here. Rule number 1. A sound definition states a trait or a set of traits, characteristics, or functions that members must possess. An example, a triangle is a polygon with 3 sides and 3 angles. Rule number 2, definitions must not be circular. As said by me earlier, we should not or avoid defining by synonyms or ostensive definitions, as it is simply a repeat of the term to be defined. Okay, rule number 3. A sound definition must not be stated in the negative when it can be stated in the affirmative. An example of this is what Alex stated earlier. A mammal is a warm-blooded animal with hair and mammary glands. Rule number 4. A sound definition should not use figurative, obscure, and metaphorical language. An example of this is electricity is the flow of electric charge, usually carried by electrons. Rule number 5. This is quite similar to rule number 3. Avoid defining by synonym or by ostensive definitions because as it's stated in rule 3, parang naging paulit-ulit lang. It's just getting circular. Yeah. For a breakdown, we will be discussing definiendum, definiens, and denotata by their analytic definitions. A definiendum is an analytic definition, as said. For a definiens, it is a type of definition that makes use of the 3 categories, the ones I stated just now, definiendum, definiens, and denotata. As for denotata, it is the one that is usually not included in the other textbooks, but as Acuna says, it is important as it is an example. Like here, it says the definition of the mammal and bird.
This one was actually stated by Acuna in his book in order to use analytic definition as an analytic definition. He used analytic definition as the definiendum, the description as the definiens, and definition of mammal and bird as denotata or an example.
To wrap up, Module 5 showed us how ambiguous and vague terms can mislead us. Module 6 reminds us that precise definitions, whether reportive, stipulative, or operational, help us understand concepts better.
And Module 7 taught us the importance of analytic definitions with the definiendum, definiens, and denotata, as well as the rules for making definitions clear. Thank you so much for listening to our presentation.
Once again, I'm Sofia Benice Enriquez.
And I am Alexandra Maridi Del Rosario.
And that is all. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.